we're always going to be interviewing them, and so we always want to kind of think about that. Here's an example. By the way, this is on YouTube. It's called The Creative Process. You guys at YouTube have put together this whole creative process lectures, and they're amazing, right? And so I just want to show you what learning is like using some of those techniques. I linked to these on the site, by the way. Oh, my bad.
Really awesome interactive.
Oh, I knew something weird was happening.
But on a higher, like, sort of industry level, it was for Burger King, the brand, and it changed the perception of.
Sorry about that.
We feel like our job is to make sure that the internet is happy with our work.
Notice
That's
his
our
eyeballs
audience.
land on
That's
the
our
top
client,
third.
Actually.
The first thing that we did that was a really big hit was the subservient chicken, which was a really awesome interactive experience where you could like type in whatever you wanted and tell a guy in a chicken suit what to do. But on a higher, like, sort of industry level, it was for Burger King, the brand, and to change the perception of what they were about. And it was a campaign for a sandwich, but it was sort of a brand success. It sort of legitimized the internet as a mass medium, as much as I would say any other site on the internet. That we can do something on a scale that rivals or exceeds, TV and other mass media.
For the most part, every project starts with a brief from the client where they're describing.
They frame these things up, and there's a bunch of them on here. But notice how they're not just showing a talking head. They're not just showing this guy standing here. They're cutting away to other things, right? And I think that's the important part, because not only is the shot framing important, but the placement of the shot. Where in time do you put the shot for it to make sense to your viewer, right? Does that make sense to you? So this is probably not the most energetic, because he obviously is like half asleep, right? But and you guys just ate, so you're probably also half asleep. But let me jump in here. Maybe I have a different one. But let me jump in here. Maybe I have a different one in here. I think it's the same guy.
My eye and
Here's one.
half of creation is recognizing your accidents. For me, I feel that I often pick up on little things that are slightly askew or things that I misinterpret, kind of catch out of the corner of my eye and kind of don't really understand, but my mind makes a connection to something else. So I'm always trying to be aware of those sort of accidents around me, because those are the germination of ideas. The idea for the magnetic jewelry was born when I was still working at the Museum of Modern Art, and I basically discovered some prototypes that had magnetic elements in them that were basically in the garbage. I was breaking up the pieces and putting the magnets out on my desk, basically to keep them, put them in my refrigerator at home or whatever. And immediately the magnets snapped together to form a line. And I thought, wow, this could be jewelry. So I developed a bunch of tricks that I would do with my hands, and those were the tricks that I put together to make the first YouTube video. I remember
What this guy's talking about some pretty cool stuff, and as he's talking, they show you what he's doing, and that's about we're calling that the placement of the shot. So let's take a look at that a little bit. There we go. The placement shot is really about the cut. How do we place all those elements together in order to get an expectation of learning, right? So as you start to put things together in your shot choices, you want kids to kind of look at that and say, hey, I'm about to get interested in something. So let me show you, the master of this was this. Do you remember this? What's that? It's establishing shot. Long shot. Here comes our character in the setting. Medium shot. Right? When we saw this, every time we saw this, we had an expectation of learning. We knew that we're going to see some interesting things. And so if you're going to be doing these kind of screencasts, you almost want to start incorporating, if anything, just that. Like, welcome your students to the neighborhood. You know, this is the neighborhood, and this is what you're going to want to do. And then you shoot an interview, like, hey, you guys, this is what we're talking about today, and so forth and so on. It can be very helpful for your kids to see that for learning, right? When you're shooting these things, when you're shooting these interviews, a lot of times we get somebody who's very long-winded, right? People just keep talking, and what do? We just film the whole thing, right? And we just kind of hope people still tune in afterwards. Kind of like I'm doing that with you right now. I'm hoping that you're still awake. And so what we want to do is we sometimes cut in. Alfred Hitchcock explains something. By the way, it's called the Kuleshov effect. But Alfred Hitchcock, he just explains it so much better.
Now, the third way is what one might call pure cinematics, the assembly of film, and how it can be changed to create a different idea. Now, we have a close-up. Let me show what he sees. Let's assume he saw a woman holding a baby in her arms. Now we cut back to his reaction to what he sees. And he smiles. Now what is he as a character? He's a kindly man. He's sympathetic. Now, let's take the middle piece of film away, the woman with the child, but leave his two pieces of film as they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now?
That's the power of the cut right there. You could completely change how something is being perceived by what you insert in between those shots. It's the cut. So if you have a teacher standing up and you're giving a lecture, and the lecture's an hour long, I think, John, you mentioned it before, somebody had it before, you can't expect a kid to sit through that. You have to keep it to like 10 minutes, you know, because the kid doesn't want to sit through anything like that. And so you have to cut that out, and sometimes you have to make choices. And what do? You can either show that cut or you can cover it, right? So let me show you an example. Just this weekend or last week, we did some interesting video. So here's our strange character just jib-jabbing, right? So here is strange character just jib-jabbing, right? So here is
But it's important to realize that these tools that we're using in a video classroom can be used in a core classroom. When you do that, the kids are more motivated. They think, oh, I'm in a video class, when they're really just learning how to do poems.
There's a little cut in there that you had to. I look like I'm insane right there, by the way. I'm sure you agree.
Used in a core classroom. When you do that,
right there,
the kids are more
and then listen to what I'm jib-jab, like
motivated.
Blah, 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 motivated, right? So I could very well show myself doing that. By the way, that's called a jump cut. And a jump cut is really the surefire way of getting people to realize that you're not professional. It's when you jump cut like that, we always go, but you'll forgive it. My students actually spend a good half an hour trying to line up the exact spot so you don't notice it, and then they put a little fade in there. And you're like, I just scream. I stop the tape, and I'm like, get out of here, you know. It's the worst of all things for me, right? It's the worst of all things for me, right?
Is it on the cutting edge where James Cameron, when he made the Terminator, they were trying to cut him down from 3 hours, and he would take one frame out every 25th frame to get the time back.
Yeah.
And he plays that back. And
yeah. Amazing. So let's take a look at this again, but this time that whole stuttering I do, I take that out too. That whole stuttering I do, I take that out
realize
too.
that these tools that we're using in a video classroom can be used in a core classroom. When you do that, the kids are more motivated. They think, oh, I'm in a video class, when they're really just learning.
So I took that out. Now it sounds much better, right? I mean, the audio is terrible, but it sounds much better. So instead, what we do is we do the old Alfred Hitchcock.
But it's important to realize that these tools that we're using in a video classroom can be used in a core classroom. When you do that, the kids are more motivated. They think, oh, I'm in a video class, when they're really just learning how to do poems.
Much better, right? It's the way we do it. And so it's important that as you start to kind of go through here, we want to cut away from things as a way to kind of shorten up the tape, but we also want to cut away to give the audience an expectation. For example, if you insert a shot, like for example, I'm right here, and like I can look around, and some of you guys are doing very well after coming out of lunch, by the way, thank you. But if I were to show a shot of me, these guys had a shot of me, and then we cut to Will sound asleep, and then you cut back to me, anybody watching me thinks I'm tired, right? Like that I'm droning on. But if I show a shot, if we cut in a shot and somebody's leaning forward like, yeah, with a big smile, you're like, this guy must be interesting. People love him, right? And then you cut away and everybody's like, ha ha, applauding, right? You establish, you're telling your audience that what you're watching right here is interesting, engaging, and fun, right? So it's really important. So that's what, by the way, we do that in the industry. In television, we did that all the time. We would constantly insert shots of things that made people look bad or made people look better than they really were, depending on how nice they were in the green room. Yeah.
Ramsey was talking about where you had two information streams going in your teaching stuff, where you had, you were parting out. Sometimes it was audio, and sometimes it was video.
And Jim, do you notice that with young editors, what they want to do is they line up the story and then they show you all the so here's the interview and then here's the guy walking with no sound as a separate thing.
Right.
But when you do cutaways, you can have two stories going at once.
Right. It's exactly right.
Because he's talking and I'm seeing something different that complements it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you're talking about the tools, you show the tool.
Right.
And then you can.
Because what kids always want to do is they want to talk about the tool and then show the tool with voice, with just music, and then go back to talk.
Yeah. And so we call that, by the way, when you cover your shots, we call that B-roll. I call it cover video. I mean, B-roll is such a great term to kind of walk around like, hey, I'm a film student, B-roll, B-roll. And, but in reality, it's cover video. In the industry, we called it cover. Cover that. That's what I would always say to you, just cover it. And kids are like, but with what? I'm like, I don't care, a bird. Just don't jump cut because I don't care what it is you're doing, just cover it. And you can do anything, like the clock ticking, like literally you could just shoot a shot of my hand going like this as long as it matches up with me doing this in the other shot. You can do anything you want. It's a bad excuse not to cover your jump cuts. Now, I always say that because, and then there's always somebody in my room that is like, but jump cuts are cool. We can get away with it, right? And I have to give you this quote from Bullet in the Brain. Anybody ever seen it? It won the $1 Million Film Festival years ago. Basically, there's a line in there where this teacher is chastising this class, and because everybody wants to go out and make the best film, first time out. And so they use jump cuts, and they have fancy music, and they do all these wild things. And this guy in this character in this movie, he sells this: you can't sell us cubism in the blue period without the bass. Don't bother trying to be artistic when you're going out there, you guys. Don't bother. Learn the rules. Establishing shot, long shot, medium shot, close-up. Do that until you're blue in the face, and then you can get crazy. And when it's important to kind of realize that. But there is one jump cut that's allowed. It's a jump cut. A jump cut is when basically you saw me. It's like a little bit of a flicker, right? Like a little bit of a movement, and it's really distracting to the audience. The axial cut is okay. The axial cut is okay. If I'm on the same axis as you, I can jump from here to here and be okay. But as soon as I move over here and I jump in, it's changing position. We call it the axial cut. And the reason I tell you this is because sometimes, and I realize this, sometimes we just don't have enough video. Like I know when it comes to teacher time, we're like this. I don't have time to go get B-roll. I just want to shoot this guy lecturing and be done with it, right? And to make it interesting, you can do what we call the axial cut. And we got this idea from this film with Sir Ken Robinson. It's a CNN film, right, a video that Sir Ken Robinson. It's a CNN film, right, a video that they put on.
I can't imagine that there's a kid in the world.
Now, by the way, yeah, no, by the way, this is the best guy in the world, right? By the way, they shot this just like this. They put a camera in a room, they filmed him, and that's all they shot. That's the only shot they got. They filmed him, and that's all they shot. That's the only shot they got.
How can I help? My name is Ken Robinson. I'm a writer and an educator, and I'm based now in Los Angeles, although I'm not from there, I'm from England. We're living in, literally, I believe, times of revolution.
See what they did?
The population of the Earth is expanding.
They moved them over. They didn't shoot it like that. They just did it. It is.
They take, it's just a one shot and then they just move them around by cropping.
Exactly. That's what. See, this camera here is shooting at HD, high definition video, 1920 by 1080. It's typical. Like our typical standard definition television is like 640 by 480. So you have a lot of room to play. You have a lot of room to kind of mess up. Now, most film people, and if anybody's ever watching this, most film people would say, "How dare you?" But in reality, when we're desperate, sometimes we just crop it out. We push in. We zoom in the picture. Watch as he continues. We push in. We zoom in the picture. Watch as he continues.
We're putting massive strain on the Earth's environment. We are developing technological innovations at the most extraordinary rate. And it means that everything is changing.
That's an axial
far faster and far more
Same
profoundly than
axis.
most
You're
people really
jumping
get,
back
I
and
think.
forth.
And there are both great
Moving them
opportunities
around.
and great challenges and some risks in all of this. And our education systems were never designed to meet these challenges. And my argument today is that we can't really just...
So it's stimulating, huh? It's somewhat stimulating. That little bit of a jump cut it's kind of artsy, but somewhat stimulating. I had some students who had some trouble, and we went out and we shot this video, and we needed to kind of do the same thing. So watch this. This is what my students came up with after watching that. This is what my students came up with after watching that. That's actually a company. It's a video about it.
Basically, Homeboy Industries is here to raise the awareness of, living a gang-free life, ending gang violence. We might not be able to just really knock it out, but we here to serve some punches and let everybody know that we got their back.
It's either, I had two ways I could have gone, one way, make money how I used to make it, do what I did, right? And the other way was to, live life.
I want them to have, when they walk away, I'm hoping that they would have a sense of pride and, a mind state to really just want to change their life.
Yeah, Homeboy Industries made me realize little by little, slowly but surely, and it was a tough road, it was a rocky road. Today, man, that's crazy. Today, March 11th, I paroled March 11th last year. Just look at me now.
It's probably one of the most amazing times I've ever been in a room in an interview. Homeboy Industries is out of LA. They take guys and women who have just gotten out of prison, and they give them a life. And so these guys were able to work their way into going out and doing speaking. And they came into our area. I live in Visalia, California, heavy gang area. And so one of the big things for me is for kids to go ahead and use video to change their world. And so we went out and we found these guys, and then we actually went down to LA and visited them at where they are. And Homeboy Industries is a pretty amazing place. That guy right there on camera realized in that moment that that was his 1-year anniversary of being out of prison. And if you could see it, he has these gang tattoos that are all being erased. And it's and it was like, I actually was like almost on the ground. I'm like, wow, on tape. It's a pretty powerful thing. But you could see, because we didn't have a lot of B-roll, we didn't have these guys doing their thing, we just we jump cut. We just jump cut around. That's taking it to another level. You could very well employ that. It's a very common practice nowadays. So that's one of the other options you have when you have video of somebody talking, right? You could certainly do some jump cutting, some axial cutting to kind of get through that, right?